Today on Goodworks, we have two stories about two powerful women, both focusing on education. One, the wife of a famous actor who's making quite an impact right here at home, and the other, a woman who, despite many criticisms, remains adored by millions of South Africans and is an object of fascination all around the world. It's all right here, right now on Goodworks. Hello and welcome to Goodworks. I'm your host, Rahman Khan. How's everybody doing? All right. Thanks for joining me here at the beautiful Delta's restaurant right here in Uptown Charlotte, North Carolina. I am so excited about today's show. Later, you're going to hear about the remarkable journey of Miss Winnie Mandela. Yes, Miss Winnie Mandela. But first up, a visit with Pauletta Washington. Now, Pauletta, along with her husband, Denzel, is very active in her church and community. Now, when you think of Denzel Washington, I'm sure plenty have said, must be a very lucky lady to get him for a husband. But wait until you meet Mrs. Washington. She was the first black contestant to ever participate in the Miss North Carolina pageant. She placed first runner-up and took home the awards for both talent and congeniality. She's an accomplished musician and stage and screen actress. Now you see what I mean? Denzel did good for himself. Well, even after all that, the thing that captured our attention was Pauletta's love for giving back. She has said, being able to give back to your community is the biggest reward anyone can achieve. We visited with Pauletta at the Ladies Leaving a Legacy brunch where she was a recipient of the Icon Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Pauletta Washington. We're here at the Ladies Leaving a Legacy luncheon with honoree and famed woman, the lovely, dynamic Miss Pauletta Washington. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You are doing so much out there. You are a mother, you are a wife, you're a musician, a pianist, sing. You do it all.
No, I don't do it all.
How do you do it all? How do you find time to, and you give back, how do you find the time to do it all?
Well, I don't know. You just make the time, you just do. This year has been a transition year for me because now all my children are out of the house.
Okay.
So I'm actually at a loss.
Wow.
Trying to figure out where am I going? What am I doing?
That gives you more time though, right?
You would think, but not really, because I belong to many organizations, and so I've put time into those.
Right. You once said that being able to give back is one of the greatest things that people can do.
Yes.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I think I got that from my parents because they always gave back and they always made sure that whatever we got, we shared and gave it back. And I think it comes from the scripture, it's more blessed to give than to receive. I think that's the basis of what it is. And truly, it really, really is. Yeah. Because to give and to see the expression and to see people's joy for getting, far more ways you're getting.
Yeah, but you know, some people don't do that though. Some people, they just say, I don't have the time, I can't do it, I got other things to do, I got to make some money, I got to get it in, so.
Well, I think sometimes that might be a fear. I think so. I mean, sometimes I feel that I was given so much. And I'm not even talking money. I didn't realize that we didn't have money until I got to college. Because I always thought, you know, we were rich. We were rich, but we were rich in the blessings of, you know, God, but not necessarily money.
Now, you also, you all visited the troops in Texas. What inspired you to go do that?
My husband has a very good partner that is Ranger is I think he's a Green Beret or something like that.
Okay.
And he was talking about how popular he was among the troops, and he asked if we would be interested in going, especially to the burn center in San Antonio. And we took the kids, we piled up, and we went. And my goodness, what an experience!
Right. How did they respond to the kids?
Oh, well, the kids were really very, very moved because it was to see someone's face completely burned, knowing that they were defending us, you know, was really very, very, very powerful. And we got to witness a guy who was 99% burned.
Wow.
And I mean, it was so unbelievable. And we were right there with him, and they got to see him. And a week after we left, he had passed away. So for them to have that experience, you know, has changed them. While we were there, we noticed that in the center they had what they call the Fisher House, and it was a house that housed the families of these victims. And because before that, the house, they were staying in the parking lot because after the visiting hours. So Kenny Fisher started this, and then my husband said, "Oh, really? Well, no, we're going to build one too."
Right,
so
that's
you know,
great.
so
That's great.
yeah.
And also education has been big for you. The arts. I mean, you went to Juilliard and several other schools of arts. But you're spending time on education and the arts. I mean, is that because it's that personal passion that comes along with that?
It's because of the personal passion, and it's also because that's what I grew up in. My parents were educators.
Okay.
And we had to read. We had to speak correct English.
That's right.
We had to have knowledge about everything, because you know what? Knowledge is freedom.
Okay.
It really is.
So you couldn't say y'all?
Well, I snuck and said y'all, but I couldn't say. You know what I couldn't say?
could?
Oh, you shouldn't have came.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a no-no.
Right?
That's a
oh,
no-no.
you should have went.
Oh, that's a no-no.
You know what I'm
That's
saying? I could never do that.
That's a no-no. That's a no-no. And y'all done something that y'all started like a foundation. It's the Pauletta and Denzel Washington, your husband, Family Gifted Scholars Program in Neuroscience, a subject that a lot of people don't talk about, neuroscience.
I'm telling you.
How'd y'all get to neuroscience? I mean,
know.
black people even, Dr. Ben Carson, but other than that, we don't know much about neuroscience.
Well, Dr. Keith Black.
That's right,
you
Keith Black.
know
That's right.
about,
That's right. Keith
he's
Black.
the major
He
guy.
is. He is.
It's so interesting because having worked with Dr. Black now for maybe like 13, 14 years,
Yes.
I'm on the executive board called the Brain Trust, and we are a group that, an auxiliary group that help find funding, project funding for the cutting edge research. So I was brought into this group, and he was doing such phenomenal things. And you know, we used to say, well, it's not brain surgery. Well, this is brain surgery.
That's right.
And what he's doing is amazing.
That's wonderful.
So because of our work, he offered, and the board at Cedars set up this scholarship for undergraduate students and graduate students to spend a summer working personally with Dr. Black and his team in the lab. I mean, what an opportunity.
I can imagine. I mean, just the sight of that.
Oh my goodness! So I'm encouraging all students from everywhere to go online and find out how you can apply to get this, because we want people to know that you can be a surgeon. You don't have to be an entertainer. You don't have to be an athlete. There are other areas that we need people.
Sure, and they get paid pretty well too.
Oh yeah, I think so.
They get paid pretty well too. Now you also, a few years ago, you and your husband, you all won the Ossie Davis and Ruby D Award.
Yeah.
That had to be powerful, just
was
because they're legends.
I know, they really are. And
how was that experience for you? Just hearing that.
Well, to be honest, Ozzy and Ruby sort of adopted us.
Really?
So we were like their little children, and they were role models for us too, being a married couple in the business. And they gave us advice all throughout the early parts of our relationship. So to receive this award was sort of like mom and dad, saying, okay, here you go.
Wow. So you've done so much. You've acted. You've done all these different things. The kids are out the house now.
Yeah.
What are you going to do next?
Ooh, I've got several projects going. I have a piece that I'm working on, a one-woman show that I'm working on. So hopefully in another year, we'll have another interview. That's right.
I know you've done some work with Debbie Allen and some other folks. I mean, you're really doing. People don't recognize all the good work that you do, and not just the work on the screen or on the stage, but off the screen, off the stage, making a difference in the lives of so many people. So I know you're appreciated.
Well, thank you. I thank you, and I appreciate you for appreciating me.
Now, finally, again, we talk about good works. People doing good works. What would you say to the people, who mamas and dads who didn't say go do the work, who just not sure if they can get out there and do the good works, but they really need to do it because of our situation in this country and in this society? What would you tell folks about doing good? Well,
what I would say is first start with the little things. Basically yourself. You can't give if you don't have. So I think first that we need to do an overall personally. You know, what about your diet? What about your thoughts? What about, you know, how are you spending your time? Is it profitable for you? Then once you do that, I think you will be prompted to go out and share what you feel. That's just what happens. I believe that.
Wow. Well, congratulations
Thank
on all
you.
the work again. We appreciate you coming on Goodworks with us today, and
Thank you.
much continued success. We'll be following you, and we're watching you and your husband, watching you too,
All right.
and all the good work you've done. Yes, the amazing Pauletta Washington. When asked what keeps their relationship of almost 3 decades solid, Pauletta and Denzel say that love is a marathon, not a sprint, and that they keep God at the center of their relationship. Denzel adds, acting is just a way of making a living. Family is life. That's deep. Up next, our exclusive interview with the one and only Miss Winnie Mandela. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Goodworks. My next guest is a woman whose childhood, according to one biographer, was a blistering inferno of racial hatred. As an adult, she became South Africa's first black female social worker. Her courage and leadership abilities have triumphed over years of political harassment, severe personal pain, and a wave of media controversy. Take a look at our visit with Winnie Mandela. I'm here with Miss Winnie Mandela, and so excited to have you on Goodworks with Rahman Khan. Thank you for coming on our show
Well,
today.
I'm extremely happy to be here too.
We're glad you're here in the States and being able to share with students some wonderful things. So just so glad to have you here. Now you've gone through a lot. You've had a long history for such a young woman, and you did a lot during the time for apartheid, for blacks and for women, but yet you continued your education and focused on social work. Why social work?
Well, I was originally a social worker before I was thrown into the political arena. It was not my choice. I got into politics because at the time, every black person in South Africa, whether you were a formal politician or not, by virtue of the color of your skin, you were forced to be political.
What lessons has that taught you? Those getting into politics and doing it for such a long time. What lessons has that taught you?
We never even had time to even consider those aspects of our lives. Apartheid was so vicious. You had no choice. You didn't necessarily take a decision that I am going to be a politician and I'll abandon social work. We were forced to be who we were politically because of the brutality of apartheid.
You stressed education. I mean, you got your degrees in social work, but you always stressed education. Why was education, or why is still education so important?
Well, there was a reason for that. At the time, when I was a young girl, our prime minister at the time was a certain Dr. Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid. And he then introduced a system of Bantu education. We were known as Bantus then, we were not known as blacks. We graduated from Bantu to black. Even then it was a real struggle because we were the fourth rung of a society, a Sikh society that was divided into 4 categories. It was divided into white, colored, Indian, and African. And we were the lowest rung. And at that time when apartheid was introduced in 1948, Dr. Verwoerd decided that the Bantu did not have to be educated. They must be given sufficient education to be hewers of wood and drawers of water. We were to be educated enough to communicate with our masters, our bosses, and our madams. So every black person in South Africa had to think the way I did.
Wow.
We thirsted for education because we were barred from being educated and we were insulted constitutionally. It was in the South African apartheid constitution that blacks had to have their own Bantu education. And that was the type of education, the quality of education. We were not allowed to do mathematics. We were not allowed to do engineering. were prohibited from taking those subjects. In fact, that kind of culture still lingers on amongst our people. It was due to our cultural background. Black families believed it was better to educate a boy because a boy did not have to leave the homestead. A girl was educated for another family. She would get married and take that education with her to the other family. So that was the culture at the time, that it was better to educate boys. And there is that kind of thinking amongst our people that in any case it is better to invest in boys because the tendency is for them to take over from their fathers. So there is stability in the homestead.
That had to be hurtful too.
Yes.
Yeah. You've always had this fight in you, right? You've always had this desire or this something inside of you that said fight for justice, for equality, for education.
That's how I look like.
Where does that come from? I mean, is it forced on you? Is it your parents? Is it your faith? What made you want to keep fighting? And not little bit, but that fire.
I think that comes with our upbringing. If you have had to strive for everything in life, firstly, I came from a family of 11. And I was right down there in the hierarchy of things. So I never had, my parents never took me for shopping, that type of thing. I always inherited clothes from my bigger sisters.
Yeah, we call them hand-me-downs.
Yeah, I always got second-hand.
Yeah.
And you start battling to survive from that very background. And at the time, our parents were not rich. My father, I was just lucky enough to have a father who was a school teacher and a mother who was a domestic science teacher. But that wasn't the life of a black child at the time. We were considered privileged, born in a rural area in the back of Pondoland, an ethnic group known as Pondos. There is the general impression that Pondos are fighters. That was not really true. I think each and every black who was in South Africa at the time, you were forced to fight for your survival.
Yes.
And I had a very strong grandmother, my paternal grandmother, who taught us to survive, to be independent of our parents, because we were too many and we had to fight for our existence.
We'll continue our exclusive interview with Winnie Mandela when Goodworks continues. Welcome back to Goodworks. And now the conclusion of our interview with the fascinating Winnie Mandela. Perfect world for Winnie Mandela. What do you see as something, what are your hopes? What do you want to see that would say, I've done my job, things are much better? What is that vision for you?
I don't think we will see that in our generation.
If you could see it, what would that look like? If you could see that, what would it look like?
Well, it would be the type of world where we have overcome the question of color, racism. It would be a world where we defined democracy in the true sense of the word. We found in our country that the ravages of apartheid had really damaged our very being in that country. And to level the political playing fields was more difficult than fighting. It was so easy to fight. We actually, a person like myself, missed those days when we were fighting.
Just fighting.
Because you could identify the common enemy.
Right. Yeah. And I know you're fighting that poverty. You're still fighting that system, that institutional system that's still there. Finally, when your days are done, or even before your days are officially done, what do you want people to know Winnie Mandela as?
I haven't even had the luxury of thinking of that because my job is far from finished.
Yes.
I can hardly think of people thinking what of me when I'm halfway my job. At my age, I still have the exact amount of years, if I could help it, to start all over again. Fighting for the liberation of our people is still, foremost in our lives. And for as long as they are not economically free, South Africa is in trouble. The Mandela regime tried to establish what was called BEE, Black Economic Empowerment. And that succeeded in enriching a handful of people.
Yeah.
And the consequence of that, white capital wanting to appear to be this BEE, then keeps giving to the same people, same tenders, and companies belong to the same people. What we had not worked out was a question of getting the wealth of our country right down to the masses of the people. Yeah. So they have not benefited at all from the liberation we fought so hard for.
And I think that's a struggle for not only South Africans, but for people all over the world and people here in this country, and how we address that and how we put our resources collectively as a united people for that. And so we wish you much success in this work, and your work is the world's work. And so we appreciate you for coming in and sharing these ideas with us and continuing to fight the fight. Not the fight, but the fight for freedom and justice and equality for all people. So, Ms. Mandela, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to interact with you.
Wow, Ms. Winnie Mandela. Just like our guest today, we all need to be out doing good things. If we all do something, we can make a big difference in our communities, in our society, and in our world. So let's do something good. Let's do something today. If you know someone out there doing good things in your community, be sure to connect us at goodworkstv.net. Send us your emails, questions, or videos, and you may see them right here on a future Goodworks program. Again, I'm your host, Rahman Khan, and we'll see you next time on the program that promises to be all good all the time. Take care.